What do you call it when a league worth billions watches a blue-chip quarterback tumble 4 rounds past his value and shrugs like it's business, as usual? Fans are calling it what it feels like, a $50 million daylight robbery with 32 lookouts and one fall guy. Here's the part you can't argue. Shedeur Sanders, the most talked about college quarterback of the year, didn't hear his name in the first, second, or third round. He went 144th overall, fifth round.
We seen that miserable game by the Cleveland Browns. So they throw Joe Flacco in there, and I like Joe Flacco. He did good, but they gave him the resource of all the first-team guys. Then they throw Dylan Gabriel in there with first teams and second teams. So Dylan always is getting protected. The same thing again, they gave this scrub max protection on every play. Yeah, he completed some passes, but let's talk about his mistakes. He's still inconsistent with his throws, but he at least had max protection.
To Cleveland. That happened. And the question that won't stop buzzing in group chats and studio sets is simple. How? Right now matters because this isn't just a draft gripe. It's the collision point between talent, power, and the unwritten house rules of a league that loves control more than it loves surprises. If you've watched the NFL long enough, you know the shield protects itself. I've spent the last day
In there with the lowest cab drivers you couldn't even get on 5th Street. And I'm pissed off, bro, because the play calling was abysmal. Look, even if you don't like Shedeur didn't even get a chance to be trash. Even if you think Shedeur is garbage, he didn't even get a chance to be garbage. That's how awful the offensive line was. Kevin Stefanski still doesn't want to give Shedeur second strings and first strings reps. Why is that? Now, what's more horrible about this game was it was to the point
they locked on this, cross-checking what scouts said, what execs hinted, and what insiders whispered, and one possibility keeps popping up like a notification you can't swipe away. This felt coordinated. Maybe not every phone call, maybe not every team, but a vibe, a current, a message. And if that message cost a young quarterback tens of millions before he's thrown a professional pass, we're not just talking about football. We're talking about the line between evaluation and orchestration. Here's where we're headed. First, we'll unpack the heist itself, the free fall, the oddities, the timing, the Browns' fifth-round pounce, 2 picks after they'd already taken another quarterback. Then we'll open the door that has the league sweating. The lawsuit talk, collusion, defamation, discovery. If those words sound like thunder, it's because they are. Along the way, I'll show you the combined moments and interview games that teams swore didn't land well, the chopped-up tape that someone conveniently leaked, and the way public sentiment flipped from "maybe he's not that guy" to "release the full interview now." Stick with me. By the time we circle back, you'll see why this story isn't over. It's just getting meaner. Start with the free fall, because that's where the second best point lives. The mechanics of the drop. On paper, Shedeur had first-round credentials. Accuracy numbers that made algorithm guys blush. Months of primetime proof where he threaded windows, hung in, and dragged a program into America's living room. The expectation was top, 10 ceiling, early second floor. Instead, round after round after round, silence. The living room cameras dimmed. The champagne corks stayed stubborn. And when the call finally came, it was Cleveland at 144. Here's the odd wrinkle. Just 2 picks before, the Browns had already drafted a quarterback, Dylan Gabriel. Stacking QBs like trading cards in the same draft? You can call it BPA, you can call it insurance, but you can't call it normal. Context. People inside the building swear ownership was in the war room on this. Not just checking in a golf shirt, hands on the board, voice in the decision. Rumors say Jimmy Haslam overruled football voices who wanted to ride the day out differently. Application. That means the Browns didn't just luck into Shedeur. They waited, watched, then moved like they knew he'd be sitting there. Framing. And that right there is where conspiracy theory stops being a hot take and starts looking like a pattern. How do you know a quarterback with first-round Shedeur will still be there in the 5th, unless someone around the league has decided to chill the market? Hold that thought, because the strongest point is the one that scares every exec with an email archive, the lawsuit drumbeat. The Sanders camp, according to people close to them, isn't venting, they're preparing. The words on the table aren't tiny. Collusion, defamation, damages north of $50 million. You don't throw those darts unless you think you've got receipts. Internal messages, texts, coordinated notes that read less like scouting and more like strategy. Avoid him unless you have to. Make him wait. Send a message. And if this jumps from rumor to filing, you hit the part of the movie where the lights come up and the audience sees the projector. Discovery. Emails, call logs, interview footage, draft day comms. The private part of the process that the league guards with its life suddenly has to explain itself under oath. Expectation versus reality. In print. Now, let's rewind to the part defenders keep pointing at, the interview gauntlet. Yes, there's chatter that Shedeur rubs certain rooms wrong. Teams love to pull a prospect into a hotel ballroom, load a tablet with his worst plays, then lean back and ask, "Walk us through why this is bad." It's a test. Not of talent, of temperament. Somewhere in that circuit, a coach points to a brutal snap early in a game, presses pause, and waits. The version that's made the rounds says Shedeur didn't give them the contrition they wanted. At one point, when a staffer pushed, he reportedly said, "Maybe I'm not your guy." Is that arrogant or honest? Depends on what kind of control you're trying to assert. Teams also brag about slipping a deliberate mistake into an install to see who catches it. The word is, he didn't flag one. Okay. Context, prospects stumble in those rooms all the time. Application, you adjust the grade. You don't bury the player. Framing, a mixed interview might knock you from pick 12 to pick 29, not from Thursday night to the 5th round. Unless the interview wasn't the point the message was, and that brings us to the leak. Days after the draft, a clipped, choppy segment from a team interview bubbles up online. Selective cuts, hard jump edits, a body language story, without the sentences in between. The internet pounced. Where's the full tape? Why show 47 seconds if the hour makes your case? The hashtag demanding the uncut interview snowballed because fans know the game. When cowardice hides behind editing, you're not proving a point. You're installing a narrative. If you wanted "See, he's immature" to be the lasting image, congratulations, you reminded everyone that context is king. The more the team went silent, the louder the call for sunlight got. And here's the twist. Silence is an answer. Quick reality check because people are trying lazy comparisons. This is not the Kaepernick situation. No one's claiming Shedeur was exiled for taking a knee or speaking on social justice. Different fight, different battlefield. This isn't about punishing a political stance. It's about punishing a power stance. One family, one coach, one quarterback saying out loud, "We have standards. We're not playing by every old rule." That alone, just the audacity to steer, puts you on a list some owners keep in their heads. Back to Cleveland, because their behavior reads like a novel with marginalia. You've got a head coach, Kevin Stefanski, who reportedly wasn't banging the table for this at first. You've got a GM, Andrew Berry, publicly threading the needle. Drafted to compete, not to sit and hold a clipboard. You've got a national radio host, the always opinionated Colin Cowherd, dropping the line, "Nobody wants a celebrity backup quarterback," which sounds a lot less like analysis and a lot more like a memo. "We'll take your talent, but we won't take your gravity." And then you've got ownership, the only room in the building that doesn't worry about job security, leaning forward and saying, "We'll take him." Now, ask yourself, was this a rescue or a setup? Did Cleveland snatch a steal? Or did they get tipped off that the market for this player had been quietly iced? Meanwhile, the family's not waving a white flag. The word from people close to them is that investigators have been digging, connecting the dots between whispers and written words, tracking who called whom and when, and mapping how a first-round projection walked into a fifth-round payday. And if you think the league wants any of that in a courtroom, imagine depositions where a team exec has to explain why that edited interview ever existed in the first place. Imagine scrolling a Slack thread where "protect the shield" is used as a verb. Here's where the story turns from grievance to threat. After the dust settled, after the memes and the think pieces and the humble pie sermons, Shedeur walked into OTAs and started playing like none of that mattered. Composed in pressure drills. Decisive on the second read. The kind of command in the huddle that makes veterans stop smirking and start listening. This is where expectations versus reality gets cinematic. The guy they wanted to teach a lesson to is making the roster room feel like he's the professor. Early word around Berea? He's not asking for the room, he's taking it. Ownership's already leaning QB, one talk into the wind. The coaching staff, the same group rumored to be hesitant on draft weekend, is now staring at the practice tape like, "Okay, now what?" Pattern interrupt. Let's zoom out. What did people expect? They expected a cautionary tale. Loud family, loud brand, softer landing. Sit behind a couple of veterans, take your reps on Wednesdays, smile for the camera, and say all the right things about learning the playbook. Reality? The moment he put the helmet on, the internal rhetoric shifted from "humble him" to "we might have to start him." And the longer that gap between expectation and reality holds, the more awkward every behind-the-scenes decision looks.